As we head to the Daily Dodge TV studio, here's Wade Bates.
Hey, thank you very much, Jeff Hall. I appreciate you being here today, and I get the honor 2 weeks in a row to host the Heiar Insurance, the Senior Solutions Show with the one and only Matt Heiar. You were looking rather dapper today if people want to dive in on the Daily Dodge TV, a stream at Daily Dodge on YouTube.
Why, thank you.
You are, you button up well. You are a top button guy, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you always been a top button guy?
I don't know. That's kind of what I do now.
Well, see, that's the only thing that's different between 1983 Tom Selleck and Matt Heiar, because you both have fantastic mustaches. Are you too young to remember Magnum PI?
I remember watching reruns of it, yes.
Okay, because Tom Selleck was always unbuttoned all the way, like 3/4 of the way down.
Yeah, no, I can't pull that off.
No, you are. But you're looking dapper today, and here I am. I actually have station gear, and then I usually have one like a pullover sitting in my office on Daily Dodge for Daily Dodge TV. Came back today because I'm getting a new washing machine from Silica today, and I was waiting for them to come by, and then I had to hand off to my wife. I got here, I'm like, oh, I took my pullover home last night. And so now I put on the Bratfry shirt.
Okay.
Otherwise, I had a Beaver Dam hockey shirt on underneath.
I was wondering, the green and blue.
So I put on the Bratfry shirt because this is in honor of the Bratfry going on at Silica today.
All right.
Which is kind of on your way home. When you're done, you can kind of stop.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no better deal.
No. How is everything at Heiar Insurance since we last talked last week?
It's going well. It's going well. It's basically at Heiar Insurance, if you don't know, we help people with the journey of Medicare. So signing up for Medicare, supplementing our Medicare with, either Advantage plans or Medicare supplements. We help people with drug plans. We also help people with retirement and life insurance, the estate planning. We have Rob Mielik help with that, setting up wills, trust, power of attorneys.
He set up my trust about a month ago.
Oh, excellent.
I've been kicking the can down the road for the last 50 years of my life, or at least, I guess, 50 years. If I'm 2, I'm not responsible, but since I was 18.
But doesn't it feel like a weight off your shoulders?
It does, because it kept saying, I'll do it tomorrow. But realistically, you never know, and much like with what you do, you never know when you're going to need it and what's going to come up, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Take care of you.
All right, well, and look at how scary last night was, where we never would have imagined storms would be hitting that hard in Dodge County area.
Yeah, did you live in the city of Beaver Dam, right?
Correct.
Did you sustain any kind of damage around your mansion?
Yeah, mansion.
Did you have like 5 bedrooms, like 12 baths?
Nope. I have a 1,700 square foot ranch with 3 bedrooms. So we don't have a guest bed because my 2 children have their room. So it's not a mansion by any means. But no, we did not sustain any damage. Some sticks, but I heard there was some downed trees and stuff in the Beaver Dam area.
Yeah. Now my question for you is because we're hearing, we probably got maybe nickel size at the office, a little bit bigger. When me and Kayla and I and Kevin were here in the office, here pounding on the roof. How big was the hail by you? Because some people said they had even like golf ball size here in Beaver Dam. Did you?
Oh wow. No. So similar to that, because the station's probably a mile from my house. But yeah, it seemed like everything went east. Like the further, even East Beaver Dam, like the further east you went, like the more damage, the bigger rain totals we were hearing, the higher winds.
Higher winds.
Oh, nice. I like that segue. Okay. No, but no, we didn't have anything, thankfully. But yes, I'm just praying for those people over in the Juneau, the Mayville area, because just seeing the pictures is, very surreal.
Yeah, we were talking to the sheriff earlier today that, this is when a lot of times people are like, tornado warning, you end up, let's go outside and watch the storms coming and stuff. This is one where people people just kind of had it in their gut that this was going to be something different. And people did. You're lucky nobody died or there are no serious injuries.
Yes, and I heard, you always hear the freight train analogy, and that's what people were saying, that they heard just unnatural sounds. And so it's very scary, but it was weird. Because obviously watching TV yesterday, that they kept coming up, severe weather, and stuff like that. But then they had a shelter in place after the tornadoes went through, and that was basically, you knew there was damage in Mayville area because, yes, they do not want you going outside and checking out the damage. There's down power lines, and we need emergency vehicles to get to certain places. So it was very, very, surreal just seeing like all this in action happen that quickly.
It is. So we appreciate you being here today. Beautiful day outside. We should have opened the retractable roof here today because it's a perfect day outside.
Did you get that in the budget for this year?
The retractable roof, I think it's in 2027's budget.
Okay.
You're going to hit a button here in the Daily Dodge TV studio. It's going to open up and we're going to have It's going to be a fan open though. They're not the fan open like American Family Field. It's going to be more like a slider.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, we can make it happen.
Absolutely.
So, what's been on the docket at Heiar Insurance this week? What's been the most I guess discussed item, or what have you been up to in the last 7 days?
So recently, I mean, we've been doing a lot of Medicare, obviously, just because people are 1960 years, right?
Yep.
They're turning 65 this year. So we've been doing that. Assisting people with Social Security, because you can no longer go to the Social Security office and get and sign up for Social Security there. You have to do a phone appointment, or you have to do it online.
Is that something that has just recently happened?
Yes.
And from this administration, or was it something that just has kind of came about this time of year?
I don't know if it was the exact administration that did that, or if it was just a change, because there was a lot of COVID guidelines, and the phone appointments started basically with COVID, which was nice. It was, hey, they're going to call you at a date and time, and they'll assist you in signing up for Social Security, and it was great. I think they are short-staffed, our local office, so I think it's just hard to plan that, and I think they don't have the resources. So, but yeah, I can help people and assist you in setting up an account, getting Social Security going, but we just have to dive in a little deeper on why we're turning it on, if we're above income limits and different details, but. Yes, absolutely. We can. There was a lot of that this week.
So you say get Social Security going. People hear, what exactly does that mean?
Well, so Social Security, obviously we pay. If you look at your pay stub.
Sometimes you don't want to, but you do.
Yep. So you're paying in, and Social Security, you are eligible at age 62 to turn it on. And that does not mean you have to, because if you turn it on at 62, typically you'll get 25 to 30% less of your benefit, of your 100% full benefit. And your full benefit is based on your year you were born. So if you're born in 1960 or later, then your full retirement age would be 67. And that's where they say statistically you're going to get 100% of your benefit.
Okay.
But it also frees up options for we are not going to have we don't have income restrictions. You can work and make $1 million a year and still collect your Social Security.
Sure. Here's my question. How does it determine how much is it determined by how much you put in, and how much is it determined how much your Social Security? Say if I make, let's just say I make $25,000 a year for whatever, and Matt Heiar has made $125,000 a year, and we both hit 62 at the same age. How is it determined what amount we get through our Social Security?
So how much you paid in. So like my 62 amount would be more than yours.
Okay.
Obviously for that reason, but yeah, it's based off. It's not like pensions. Like pensions typically are like your highest 3 income earning years. It's not like that. It's like an average of the last 35 years of working wages.
Sure, because that's one question that people always ask, and they don't know. You said so. You're working. Maybe I've only had a couple of full-time jobs, but there are other people that have had 10, 15 jobs in their life. Some of them they made good money. Maybe some of them didn't make as much. But then you hit 62, and then you try to figure out when you talk to your people like you kind of look at your plan and see where you're at and what you got to do to have the expenses meet the income coming in, and so then there's like a formula that they figure out what you put in and what percentage you get per month or per year.
Yep, and that's why it's like self-employment is really tough, because when you're self-employed, it's net income, so you might not be showing a lot of income as to someone with like a W-2 or like that they make $40,000 a year, and they paid in for the last 30 years. So our ultimate goal though for retirement is just, we do not want to be relying on Social Security. We don't want that our only source of income. That's where it gets a little difficult for the income planning.
So what would be, are there people, I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but there are probably I'm going to say into the 90s, because that's where pensions I think started to kind of slip away a little bit. Back then, Social Security was just a part of what people had. No matter what job you had a pension. You had, maybe you had, and now there probably are people there aren't jobs with pensions anymore, are there?
Very rare.
There's some like you work for the state, you do, but they're not as I should say they're not as profound anymore.
Yeah, and that's why our baby boomers are, we're getting towards the later stage of the baby boomers. So the next one I believe is like Gen X.
Yes.
So I was reading an article where they're really pushing for, they want pensions. because
to bring them back, you mean?
Yes. And it's going to take a lot for these, employers to do that because it's a lot of money. And with people living longer, and it's a guarantee they have to pay. So someone that has been working for 20 years, they're still paying.
Yeah, and is that that's one of the things too where I don't think people quite understand how pensions work maybe with a company. So a company, if they offer a pension plan to their employees, and no matter how big they are, they have to keep investing into that pension, or money goes in there. So there's always a place for that money to come out to pay everybody.
Yep, it's a big bucket.
Yeah.
So like the current employees that are paying, they're help paying for retirees also, similar to how Social Security works. So that's why with the introduction of these 401ks, we're creating pensions for people,
Okay.
Via an annuity, which is an insurance product where basically there's so many different types of them. There are bad ones because I know people hear that word and they don't like them, but it's a contract, basically. So they say, hey, you put X amount of dollars in. After 13 months, you can turn on income and we'll pay you out 6%, 6.5%, whatever it may be. It's based on your age, similar to a pension. And it's that warm, fuzzy feeling where it's a constant. It's going to keep coming the first of the month, every month. So that's how we lessen our risk in the market.
Okay.
So we're taking slices of, your 401k, taking it off and turning that into a pension where it's a constant. And another option is a joint payout.
Okay.
So if one of you pass away, we want to make sure the bills are going to keep coming in. So we solve that by just taking an annuity, having a plan for it, or else protecting our assets and just having a different correlated asset, not just strictly market driven.
Sure. You mentioned you create a 401k, which is something you guys can do. Like, do you usually look at like people? Because I remember questions being asked, like, do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be conservative? And do you usually see that people, when they come to you and you're setting some stuff up for them, do younger people, is it vary on who's more aggressive and who's more conservative? If you're young, I think I've always heard you can be more aggressive because your retirement could be 30, 40 years away.
Absolutely.
Or, 25 years away, where if you're, 60 years old and you're pumping stuff in, do you want to be aggressive when they say it's aggressive, that just means there's potential to make a lot, but there's also a risk that it might go the other way?
Yes, you're more in growth stocks, and you're obviously they're a little bit more risky.
Sure.
But at the same time, yes, typically when we're nearing retirement or in retirement, we're conservative. I mean, that's what we hope for, right? But if someone, they're getting a pension, they get Social Security, they have no debt, and this 401k is not part of it, well, maybe they would be a little bit more aggressive. So it's not like cookie cutter, everyone should do this, but that's how we do it for the regulators, based on your risk. Because if you come in and say, yep, I'm a conservative investor, I don't really want to have a lot in the market, and then all of a sudden I start investing you in crypto,
okay,
that's a big problem.
Yeah. So we're talking to Matt Heiar from Heiar Insurance here, Senior Solutions. What is considered a growth stock? What does that mean? What does that mean?
So basically, they're just growth companies. Like, if we look at the trend in the past, like what they've done from their inception of starting, and their growth. We have, at least a 10-year period, 5-year period, 15-year period of, what they've done. So there's projections, but they're not indicative of the future, obviously. But yes, I mean, so you're in a company and you try to get value stocks, which they're lower end startups, small market, small cap stocks.
Sure.
So, but that's the thing with when you roll your 401k over, to an IRA, we want to spread it out, between international markets, large caps, small caps, bonds, obviously, and maybe even some cash and money markets.
Sure.
So but that's not everyone, so we have to, because every situation is different. That's why I really like what I do, because it's every client and situation is different, and it just makes it, there's never the same day ever for me.
So in your portfolio, you could maybe, back in the day, have had Meta, which was a startup thing back then. It wasn't called Meta,
Yep.
Or you could have some stock in a company that wants to drag an iceberg off the Antarctic and bring it down for fresh water.
Yep.
To it's from the movie Brewster's Millions. And,
Oh, yeah.
And that was a stock. You ever see that movie with Richard Pryor?
Oh, yes.
And so that's that kind of thing. You want your portfolio just wide.
Yes.
To kind of be in a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I mean, you want it diversified.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the the best way to try to limit losses, but that's still, you're still exposed to the market. And that's the biggest thing is, we're trying to not have that exposure. So that's why the introduction, of like an annuity product where we take a slice of the pie, put it off and say, hey, this is plan B. If, plan A doesn't go to plan, because we don't know what's going to happen. But yes, so many people want to time the market and it's just impossible. I don't know anyone that can do that. Because, and that's what happens, all of a sudden it starts going down. I want out. But then the next day it goes back up and corrects. Well, we just missed out on that.
So at what point, that's one of those things too, because like I said, I'm 50 and we've talked about that. So I'm kind of a tweener, I guess you could say, where it's not that far away, but it's also, I'm 20, 30 years from when I really got in the workforce and, you're 15 years from maybe getting out.
It's a thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, at what point do you start looking at that number? Because I've also heard people say that, whatever you have, you can't really look at it every month if you're not going to retire for 30 years because it's going to be ebbing and flowing and up and down and stuff like that, where you can get stressed out if the market's very fluctual. That's not a word, is it? Fluctual. If it fluctuates. No, but I mean, should I look at that every month when I get my receipt? Oh, then it says last year at this time your portfolio was worth this. Now it's only worth this. Or last month it was worth this. Now it's up a little bit and it's worth this. I mean, how for a guy like me who's 15 years out, concerned should I be looking at those numbers on my retirement type stuff?
Well, I feel like it all depends on the individual.
Okay.
And your anxiety level.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem is we get statements and like you said, you looked at it and be like, it went up, it went down. It did nothing. And it goes to the garbage, right?
Sure.
Because there's 38 pages of disclosures.
Yeah, there is literally. You get the thing. It's like a thick thing that you get every single month.
Yes, and I think the biggest thing you can do once it starts to become more relevant to you would be, what am I invested in?
Yeah, okay.
What are my fees? What did this portfolio do last year? Looking at all those numbers and kind of breaking down like, oh, the 5-year period, the year to date, the last quarter, what did it do? Just looking at little things. And if you don't know what that means, which a lot of people don't,
no,
they're very confused.
I look at the number and then I'm like, okay.
Right. And everyone's guilty of that.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that's right or wrong, but I think educating yourself on, what it's in, because you have the options, to allocate it to a more conservative or maybe a little bit more aggressive, just depending on what it is and just getting the knowledge of, even if you're just bringing it to someone and having someone explain it to you, or else just calling the actual company that you're with and just being like, hey, what are some other options, or if there is, it's and just, I think the more knowledge you gain on what is happening, the less anxiety you'll have of the future.
Mine have little punch holes in them? Do you think anybody actually keeps them in like a binder month to month, those 38 pages?
That is pretty retro.
Mine are like never opened. Like honestly, I probably open mine every other month.
Okay.
It sits there and I just always forget to open it, and then I look at it, and let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people do keep them, but now with how we've moved to digitize everything, it's so nice that where you can look at the last 3 years, 2 years, and you can pull it up on an app on your phone.
Sure.
And so like our goal when you come to us is to not be that person, to not be checking every day. And do people still do it? Yes. But that's where we have to. If you're that nervous of being in the market, then you should not be in the market.
Sure.
And that's why when you answer, like, this is how we show to the regulators and our broker dealers and stuff, like, okay, this is why I justified putting them in this, because they told me that X, Y, and Z. They're conservative, they want growth, but they really don't want too much exposure to the market. And then I put 100% in the market. Yeah, that's a problem. So we have to justify for everything, but the difference is what we like to do is we like to know why, what the plan is, what our strategy is, based on what you told us. So like transparency is huge in our relationship with every one of our clients.
Talking with Matt Heiar from Heiar Insurance. It is Senior Solutions here on Daily Dodge TV and 95.3 WBEV. Give us a look on YouTube and check us out. If you have any questions, give us a call at 920-885-4446, 920-885-4446, and Matt can answer them on the air. here. Somebody wants to set up an appointment and maybe want to talk to you in person. What's the best way to get in contact? You know, operators are standing by as we speak.
Yes, Jill is standing by at 920-887-0580. And honestly, like, it's a complimentary consultation. There's no strings attached. If you do want to bring in a statement and be like, what is this? Or what is this? Or I got this letter, or I want to talk about my insurance. You do not have to be our client. And so many people think that. And a lot of people actually just think like, well, I didn't think I had enough money to even meet someone. And everyone is different. And that's why people, I feel like, are scared to come to people like me or our office, because they're like, yeah, I don't know much about this. Of course not. You know, how have you ever signed up for Medicare? Have you ever retired? And, you know, and that's why there's no silly question. And Ninja says it all the time. He's like, this might be a dumb question. There's no such thing. There really is not when it comes to this, because everything is new. But our goal is just to localize it and just be there. So like, the person you're dealing with is me. So like, when you can stop in our office, you can give me a call, you can email me, text me, and you're talking to the same person and not some 1-800 number.
Yeah, exactly. So coming face to face, and people, I think, feel more comfortable coming into your office, you know, sitting down and you can ask questions, as opposed to, because then you're calling somebody on the phone that may not be, you know, anywhere in Wisconsin. Heck, they may not be in the country, you know,
right,
that you're talking to, and you're trying to answer questions. And sometimes the ease of being able to look, you know, I can look you in the eye, and you can kind of,
I agree.
You can I can ask you questions, and I feel more comfortable.
I had someone yesterday. They're like, "How old are you?" I'm like, "That's a random question," and I was like, "Oh, you're serious? I'm 38," and they're like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, well, why did you ask me that? You know, and because typically I'm asking your age. But they said they want youth. They want someone that, they're not just going to retire or get out of the business. And yeah, they want someone there throughout the retirement.
They wanted the long-term relationship with you, right?
That was the first time someone's asked me that. I'm like, wow. I was like, yeah, I'm very far from retiring. I don't think my boss will let me, because
yeah,
then my boss has to come back to work more.
You have no choice. But that is the case, though, too, because especially in stuff like where your future is kind of, you feel like you're putting faith in somebody to help make sure you're secure through the end of your life. And if all of a sudden it's, you know, Matt's here, and then John is here, and Amy's here, and Barb's here every 5 years, or somebody new, you have to rebuild that relationship, and you don't maybe feel as comfortable as you have, knowing that I can always call Matt Heiar at Heiar Insurance, and he will have an answer for me, and I've trusted him because he's shown results over the last 15 years of my investments and getting ready for that retirement.
Well, and they understand you. They know what the strategy was. It's a trust factor. It totally is. And that's why, yeah, you know, if you go certain places and there's just a new person every couple of years, you know, that could be frustrating. You know, like, you're not guaranteed to like you might like the next person even more and stuff, but there is no contracts. There is no, because like, you might come by me and you're like, I don't think we're the best, you know, fit, and you leave. And that's, I can't say you're wrong. You know, that's why there's no strings attached. There's tons of people that do what I do in every city you look. But if you want to, I want people that want to work with me, you know, because I want to work with them too. But, you know, you can't work with everyone.
Sure. And the fact that Heiar Insurance, you know, Senior Solutions, you know, we do the show here every Friday, and I think people get to know you kind of a little bit. We talk about things besides, you know, hard business here sometimes, you know, which is good because people get to see you. They get to see you down at the, you know, at the county fair. They'll see you at the Dodge County Fair on the zipper, you know, walking off. You know,
not at the zipper,
not at the zipper. No, but they'll see you at a festival that we have, or at a brat fry, or just downtown, you know, roaming Front Street, you know, looking for some furniture somewhere. So people feel like you're one of us, you know, and you're part of the community. You're not just, you know, some person that just saying, oh, do this, and do this.
Right. Well, and I'm born and raised here, and I take pride in seeing these people, you know, at events. Oh, I'm just bummed that there's no more Lake Days.
I know.
If anybody's listening, if you want to start bringing back Lake Days, please do. I mean, that would be so cool.
How about the jam at the dam?
Well, that's still happening.
I know, yeah. I've seen you there. You have a good time there, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great time. And
that's starting pretty soon too, isn't it?
Yes, the last weekend in June.
Well, that's 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
6 weeks away.
You already planning?
Of course. That's always good. It's a free festival at Tahoe Park, but stuff like that, right? You know, just like being around in the community, because you sometimes you learn a lot of things at those places. Just, you know, hanging out and fellowship with your fellow Beaver Damians.
Yep. And that's why, you know, we live in a small town, but that's, I think, one of the most rewarding things is seeing, you know, your clients and stuff like in public and talking to them and catching up. And it's one of the best parts of the job, obviously. And my wife doesn't always like it because she's like, I get sidetracked a lot and I'm always talking to people. But I mean, that's what I do for a living. So it's kind of, it is what it is. But it's very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, that's the case too. And then it's also, like you said, it's also nice too that, once you get somebody going and they get everything turned on, and you can kind of see, maybe some people that had nerves or they're a little anxiety going into retirement, and then you see them at a festival or see them somewhere, and hey, you know what, Matt, you were right. The things are working out. We've got it in the right spot and enjoying life.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like a therapist sometimes.
Do you?
Well, because everyone has anxiety with retirement. There's no more checks coming in. What am I going to do? I still have bills. I haven't paid my house off yet. These are all common concerns, and you just have to walk them through it and just say, look at these reports. This is saying, it's been run 97 times, that you will not outlive your money. And yes, that's just seeing it on paper. Seeing is believing, but it's still, we can't predict the future, so it's just giving the people peace of mind is the most rewarding aspect of what I do.
Sure. If somebody comes in and typically when you say outlive your money or, outlive your money.
Biggest fear.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's for everybody, because what happens if I'm 75 or I'm 83 and what if I live to be 110?
Yeah, you never know.
But is it like an expense versus what you anticipate your expenses are to how much money you have to see how long that will stretch out?
Yep. So it's all the technology, obviously, that runs, reports, and we stress test these income tests. But yes, it's still not 1,000%, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is. But that's where basically we run all these different programs and just run it through the ringer, basically. And it shows, like, statistically, 99% of the times you will not run out of money, or you'll live to 100 and blah, blah, blah and stuff. So, but the main thing is transparency, like living within your means. Just because we retired doesn't mean like, well, I'm going to buy this and this.
I'm going to Hawaii. We're going to go visit Branson for the third time here today, this month.
Right. And that's where, and typically we don't have problems like that. But yes, people get this 401k and this chunk of money. They're like, well, look, I got that. Like, why don't I spend it? It's like, well, that's taxable.
Yeah.
So that could raise us a tax bracket. So just because the boat was 20,000 doesn't mean you pull 20,000 and that's how much it costs. How much are we gonna have to pull above 20,000 to make sure we don't have a taxable event, to get to net out 20,000.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden that might take, instead, if you all of a sudden buy a big boat, it might be you're good from 98 years old to 97 years old. It might take a year off, or if you buy a big boat, I guess,
right?
And things like that, or it would just spread things out a little bit.
And then if that happens, we run the scenarios and see, and a lot of times it's like, yeah, you're good, but that's where I advise, but it's ultimately your decision. But I record everything. So it's just, I just want to make sure that, we're transparent, we're on the same page. And that's the main thing. That's why it's really fun. And when people are seeking advice from you, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm doing my job here.
We're talking Matt Heiar from Heiar Insurance, Senior Solutions on 95.3 WBEV and Daily Dodge TV. Please like and subscribe to Daily Dodge TV on YouTube. And every time we do a show, you'll get a notification and you can see what's going on. Do you find that some people, they come to you and then they end up looking at, okay, I need to make sure this money lasts as like my basic filling my needs. And then people will get maybe a second part-time gig. They want to work at a golf course. They want to go do this, work part-time, doing something to maybe for their fun money. And I know a guy that retired, but then he decided he wanted a cottage back when cottages were $1 million on the lake. Now he goes, I'm going to go work here, maybe 25, 30 hours a week to make that payment so I can have a place to go fishing. Do you find that a lot of people are maybe doing that where they do something else to have a little extra cash on the side?
Absolutely. And that actually really helps out, when we do the stress tests, like we're giving X amount of dollars, monthly for your stipend basically. And you start working part-time and they'll call and be like, we don't need that much, and that really obviously helps things out. Or we just keep it going because we already stress test it and then there's a surplus and we're essentially saving money because you're going to have to spend this money regardless, because once you turn 73, Uncle Sam says, guess what? You got to start spending some of that.
Okay.
So that's what we call a required minimum distribution.
Okay.
So basically Uncle Sam is saying, you've had this money long enough and I haven't seen any taxes on it. So we got to start pulling some and we have to hit those thresholds.
Okay.
So once the year you turn 73, you have until April 15th to take X amount of dollars out. And it's based on life expectancies. We have calculators for it. But then every year after that, you have to take X amount of dollars out too. And that is by December 31st. And we have to hit that, because if you do not hit that, there's like, say you have to take out $10,000. Perfect. If you miss, then there's a 50% excess tax.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's 50% is a lot, big number.
And then you got to pay your income tax on.
Yeah.
So you might end up with only $2,000-$3,000.
Out of your
$10,000.
$10,000.
We have to hit those numbers. And now another thing people say is it doesn't have to be from one account, because some people, it's different. Not people aren't working 40 years at the same job. Like, you used
Everybody
to hear.
worked at it seemed like back in the day, everybody got a job and they were in that job until they retired, or maybe they switched one job, or their spouse moved and got a job. But people didn't like job hop. It was a different culture.
I totally agree. And that's why, a lot of people I've been noticing lately is they're coming in with 3 different old 401ks, and they're like, what is this? I keep getting these statements, and it's like, well, that's a retirement plan from when you worked at X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, and the main thing is like, okay, they're the same tax consequence. If you touch it, it's taxable. So let's combine them. Let's get one statement, because we already know you get a bunch of paperwork anyway.
Yep.
So, we're trying to simplify things in retirement, and that's the main goal for everyone. And that's why why we're unique, is because we do it with Medicare and Social Security and health insurance and the income planning. So you're going to stop by us anyway. And some people are like, yep, it's just easier just coming here and calling. And that's the ultimate goal for people, is we want to handle every aspect. And that's why we brought Robin with the estate planning, to even help that aspect.
What happens if I contribute to Social Security for my whole life and I'm 61 and something happens and I pass away? What happens to that money in Social Security?
So it's just like the state pension fund,
Okay.
right? If you turned on your state pension and you picked your life only and you collected 2 checks and passed away, it goes back to the state pension
Just
fund.
the general fund, so just distributed to somebody else.
Yep.
Same thing happens because there are people probably that end up making more money than they put in, kind of the other way as well. They make more money than they put in, or they are given, or they're awarded, I guess, what's the proper term? Social Security ends up distributing more money than maybe they put in. That happens too? Or
Yeah, if you live
on
longer.
Social Security, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yep, but now like your spouse could have potential to collect off of what you've paid in.
Okay, so the spouse can collect Social Security if they pass away. If you
Yes,
pass away.
and they have special rules. It's called the widower's benefit, and basically, like a widowed spouse can turn it on at 60 instead of 62.
Okay.
Still have the income restrictions. So like potentially, like, okay, you passed away, so your wife turned it on at 60, right? So she turned hers on, or no, she started collecting yours.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Well, they have a special benefit where they can wait and let their personal Social Security grow, and then they could potentially turn theirs on at 70 if it's more.
Okay.
So we don't have that option. We can't let it cook and take someone else's. Usually when we turn it on, that's it. That's the only option we have.
Are there penalties if, say, a spouse would start collecting? Are there like more penalties or taxes that go onto that Social Security? Will they get less money than say I would have got? Would my wife get less money than I would have got if, say, would pass away before even my Social Security is turned on?
Yeah. So like there's a bunch of unique. I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole with this, but like, so say like your wife's was $50 more than yours.
Okay.
Okay. And you passed away.
Okay.
Yours is gone.
Okay. Just done.
Yep. So that's why the government incentivizes us. They're like, look how much you get at 70. And that number is beautiful.
Because they want you to hold off. And then if for some reason, if something tragic happens, you all of a sudden, that's just more money that they have to give somewhere else.
Exactly. And that's why it's based on life expectancy tables. We don't have a crystal ball. We all know our day's picked out. We just don't know when. So to me, if it makes sense, that's less that we're pulling from retirement assets. It could make sense, between obviously after we do the widowed spouse test, and then also making sure you're not over the income limits. Yes, we might. And that's why so many people come in and they're like, I'm like, are you going to turn on Social Security? They're like, nope. I'm like, oh, when are you waiting? And they're like 67. Everyone says 67.
Okay.
And that's your full retirement age. And I just kind of play devil's advocate. I'm like, oh, well, why? Well, that's my full retirement. Oh, okay. Well, because like if markets start to get volatile, it's like, well, that's less we have to worry about pulling from market money. And maybe it makes sense. Maybe if we wanted to make sure one was much larger than the other one, yes, that is a strategy. But a lot of people just say that default age because that's what we're told. This is my full retirement amount. And it's like, oh, okay, but you make it to 67 and you collect 3 checks and pass away. And we don't know that. And I don't want to sound morbid with it, but this is just the industry I work with, and things do happen. So if it helps out now the lower of the two, we turn on as soon as possible. Because if one of you pass away, that one's gone automatically.
Okay.
So it's like, if that makes sense, we turn it on as quickly as possible, like yesterday. And the cool part about Social Security is, like, right now it's May 16th. I knew that. So we turn May 16th. If you came in today and said, I'd like to turn on my Social Security and start in May, we can do that. Yes, will it be processed by next month? No. But we can get May. So, like, for Medicare, it's complete opposite. I need to see you 90 days prior to get it going in 3 months. But for Social Security, yeah, if you come in June, I can get you June. Now, your June check won't come till July. So I know.
I think sometimes people get confused too. I was talking Matt Heiar from Heiar Insurance on 95.3 WBEV and Daily Dodge TV. They get confused. Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare. They hear all these different names, thinking maybe they're all the exact same thing, and they're not. And thinking about my pension and all this, and they're like kind of get confused. What is what, and where things go, and what things are covered.
That totally reverts me back to, like, oh, this is a silly question. I don't know much about Medicaid, and it's like, oh, well, we're not here for Medicaid. So Medicaid would be low income.
Yeah.
It's a state and federal funded program through the state and the federal government, obviously, for low income. Medicare is our health insurance for people 65 or older, if they are not low income. The Social Security, obviously, is just what we pay in. But yeah, these are all phrases and terms that I hear people say, well, I need Medicaid. And, you're close enough.
Yeah, they hear the terms, but they're not exactly sure where they are in the grand scheme of governmental financing plans or whatever they're at.
Well, and only nerds like me would be looking at this kind of stuff. It's not. I remember when my mom first started this radio show, a long time ago. I can't even tell you.
Is that with John? Did you deal with John Moser?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely. I did a couple shows with him.
Okay.
Yeah, he was easy to deal
But when
with.
your mom first did the show,
So I was working with my dad, and I listened to this show, and she's like, how was it? I'm like, it was so boring. Because I was early 20s, and it was so irrelevant to me.
Sure.
Like, who cares about Medicare? Like, it'll probably be different by the time I'm there. And but I have a lot of people that were coming in when I first started doing this, and they're like, I listen to your mom every week. I learned this. She gave me so much advice, and I didn't realize the value of the show and how people actually are listening and, calling in with questions or coming back into the office and be like, hey, you said this last week. What did you mean? And it's just, it's once again rewarding.
And it was one of those things where you maybe don't need it right now, but you listen and maybe we give you a little bit snippet more of knowledge, lot more knowledge when it comes time, and you do hit that. When your year of birth comes up, when it's time to go, you kind of have a background in it. You're not coming in completely cold. And hey, Matt, I remember you guys were talking about this with Social Security here. I want to make sure I turn this one on right now. Kind of explain more again what that means to turn this on, or do I need to wait till I'm 67?
Yep.
People can kind of come in and you don't have to sell it all. They kind of have a base knowing that there are options.
Absolutely. And that's why Mose used to say it all the time. He said, you don't know what you don't know. And I used to think, like, that sounded so funny, but it's so true in, like, what we do.
Oh, if people want to get it started, they have any questions, what's the magic number of the year we're on right now?
Yes. So all my 1960 babies out there, if you're 90 days prior, so we're already signing up people for, let's see here, May, June, July, August. We're signing up our August people already. So, and then obviously once we get to the fall, it gets super busy. So schedule your appointments early. I don't care if you're not till October, November. If you still want to come in early and just get a game plan, because all I worry about is the government stuff.
Sure.
Let's get the government stuff done. That's the only thing I can't control. So that's why we want to be 90 days early. The insurance aspect, I can control that. I can get you temporary cards, policy numbers. But for a complimentary consultation, just give us a call at 920-887-0580.
Very informative today. I learned a little bit about Social Security today.
All right.
Thank you. If big plans for you this weekend?
I have nothing.
Nothing?
Yes.
I don't know what I have. I know tonight's one of those nights we have soccer in Cambridge. We have a track meet in Hartford, and we have an a cappella concert at the high school.
Oh, wow.
Can't be in like multiple places at one time. So I have to figure out which way I'm going
So
tonight.
you need a third parent.
Exactly. And then, one of them is track, and so it's like do track meet, race home. Who's going to be like the Duke boys, to get her back for that. But so we have that going on. I don't know what I have either. Sometimes I don't want to know what I have. You look at your schedule and you're like, okay, what's going on? I'm going to be actually tomorrow out at from 11 till 1 at the market in Beaver Dam.
Okay.
Broad Fry, the choir, Beaver Dam Choir is going to New York, and Mike Monheim and the staff at the market are letting them work their grand reopening. So
That was another good deal, too, I heard earlier.
Tomorrow you can get $1.
Yes.
You get a drink and chips.
Yeah, so.
Were you a choir guy?
No.
No, you were in the
I was band.
You played the clarinet, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I played the trumpet.
I can see you as a trumpeter.
Yes.
So,
No,
all right.
but tomorrow I'm going. Isn't there something at the hospital?
Yes, also Safety First event tomorrow at the hospital from 10 to 1.
Yes, I think my littles will love that.
That is going to be fun to get to go look at an ambulance, get to go see the helicopter land. So lots of different things going on around town.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And one of those places you can stop is Heiar Insurance. Matt, appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Justin will be back next week. We thank Jeff Hall for spinning the dials and pushing the buttons as well. This has been Senior Solutions on Daily Dodge TV and 95.3 WBEV.
Thank you.